What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So, guys, today we are breaking down the 3 keys to victory for Merab Dvalishvili at UFC 311. We're going to talk about the strategies that he can implement to keep his belt and hand Umar Nurmagomedov his first career MMA loss. So, Nick, I think the perfect place to start it is to discuss the necessary game plan of pressure grappling as well as setting traps for Merab. So what he's going to have to do against Umar, because Umar's really good at range. We know his striking is phenomenal.
Right.
We know he has a big arsenal of kicks. We also did see Merab when he was at range with Sean O'Malley, kicking range that is, at the end of the fight, take some pretty damaging body kicks. So I think that range control and pressure as well as setting traps for his grappling offensives is going to be really, really paramount if Merab is to maintain his belt here and get the win over Umar. So what are your thoughts on how Merab can trick Umar and rope him into some exchanges that are advantageous for him and maybe put Umar on the defensive?
Well, I really did love what Merab did against Sugar by staying so patient, staying so far out of the fight that, you know, it forced Sugar in. But I really did love watching Merab's rise to the top of the division, and that was a pressure fighter, a guy that would walk across and take a gold medalist Olympic wrestler and pick him up and put him on the ground. That's the Umar, or that's the Merab that we all got used to knowing. And with Umar, it's going to be a little bit different because he's going to have to bring some pressure at times, but I also think he needs to utilize that game plan he had against Sugar Sean. But like you said, he does need to pressure at times. He does need to get inside at times. And when you're dealing with a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov, who is a better striker on the outside than Merab, it's very important that when you do get into your striking exchanges, you're watching out for the kickboxing range and you're able to get inside into the boxing range. That'll take some of those most powerful weapons of Umar away, which are the kicks, and even some of the longer punches. If he has more space to throw the shot and get full extension, those will be more detrimental. But I think Merab Dvalishvili needs to try to cut the cage off and pin Umar up against one of the panels of the cage. If he can do that and make the fight a little bit more of a stationary fight, that will open up his hands. I don't really think he needs to kick. I think it's very advantageous for Umar to kick in this fight. I don't think Merab needs to kick at all because Umar strikes a lot harder than he does, and Merab's not the best kicker in the world. So when he goes and throws these leg kicks, he usually doesn't get off center line enough. He's usually compromised on his balance, and with a counter striker and a guy who hits as hard as Umar, that's a very dangerous place to be. So I would avoid kicks if I was Merab when you're trying to bring that pressure and you're trying to cut the cage off. But what I would do is turn up the volume and try to get your hands going as much as you can, because that will get the guard of Umar up while he's up against the cage. That's the best moment and opportunity for Merab to change levels, you know, put Umar up against the cage and try to drag him to the ground. I think that would be his best way to get the fight to the ground if he's not able to just blast a double leg or find some sort of trip or takedown off of a kick.
Yeah, and range management ties into this really heavily as well, because we know Umar will pick apart Merab at a kickboxing range.
Oh, yeah. Likely knock him out.
Probably so. And however, we did see Umar get rocked by Begzat Almakhan not that long ago, and that was from a closer boxing range. I think it was a nice short hook. If I'm wrong, it was maybe an uppercut that put Umar down there. So one thing that's really important to, you know, keep in mind if you're Merab Dvalishvili is that you do have a disadvantage across the board as a striker, but Umar's not really your Ilia Topuria pocket boxer.
No.
You know, he's a rangy striker with a lot of creative kicks. He covers a lot of ground when he strikes, but in a phone booth setting, he's not the best there.
Right.
So if Merab can keep pressure on him intelligently, of course, don't run in and get yourself knocked out. But if he can keep a nice, intelligent pressure, then he could find some of those inside boxing exchanges where he might be able to do some damage against Nurmagomedov, just like we saw with Begzat Almakhan, and that was the shot that put him on the ground. Obviously, Umar recovered, you know, tremendously well when Begzat did knock him down. But, you know, getting a knockdown would be something that I'm sure Merab Dvalishvili would love to have.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, the striking from Merab has always been a means to an end. Get the fight to the ground. If I can get my chest on this guy's chest, eventually I can get him to the ground. But it's going to be very difficult because Umar uses such good angles and his range is so good. He's really good at staying disciplined and long. I'm interested to see what Merab is going to do differently to find his ways inside, because in his last title fight, we saw him, waiting for Sugar to come in, and he's not going to have that same luxury against Umar for 25 minutes. He might be able to do that for a round or maybe portions of every round, but Umar Nurmagomedov is going to be able to bring some pressure, and he's going to be more willing to engage with Merab on the feet, and he's not going to be so concerned about getting taken down like Sugar was.
Yeah, and I think, talking about the volume and the striking and setting up different things like that, it brings me to point number 2, which I think is really important for Merab, and that's emphasis on power over volume with the striking. And what I mean by that is, don't necessarily cut down the volume. That's what you use to set up your takedowns. That's part of your game plan. That's ingrained in who Merab is as a fighter.
Right.
So for him to just stand and throw single shots, I don't think is the right move. But he's got to do something to make Umar respect his striking, or Umar will, because Umar's not going to respect the grappling, because Umar's not afraid to be on the ground, because he knows that Merab can't submit him, and he can actually submit Merab.
Yeah.
So what's the one way to keep somebody like that off of you so that you can engage when you want to shoot your takedowns with a guy like Umar? And that's to put something on him that he actually feels, that registers. So I think it's really important, Colby Covington, Merab Dvalishvili, we talk about these guys that have great cardio and they use volume striking as a means to an end to get their takedowns. And there's nothing wrong with that unless you're fighting somebody who really doesn't care if they get taken down.
Right.
And that's Umar. So he has to put some power shots and disguise them well into his combinations to make Umar respect him, which will give him the space and timing he needs to engage when he wants to.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not the best at feints. He's not the best at striking. He's not the most powerful striker, but with the pressure of his takedowns and his ability to feint, and you don't know when he's going to shoot and when he's going to throw a shot, if he's able to put a couple of heavy overhands on Umar early in the fight, that will increase his chances of getting the takedowns, because now when he does change the level, you might have Umar dropping his hands down to defend, and that's when the overhand comes across. It's the exact same thing that Khabib caught Conor with. The threat of the takedown was enough to scare Conor to get clipped. It wasn't that Khabib is just a better striker than Conor. He's of course not. But Merab could go with the same thing. The threat of the takedown that Merab has is very serious. Hopefully he can implement some of that on Umar and get Umar to respect his grappling. But you're not going to grapple a guy like Umar unless you can hit him in the face a few times on the way into grapple. And I think that Merab really does need to make this a dogfight. He does need to get inside. Like we said, cut the cage off, get heavy with your shots, still throw your volume, but you really got to focus. You're the machine. You have you have an endless gas tank. You can throw a few extra, maybe 10 extra big power shots, looming hooks. They don't have to be these sniper shots like a Kevin Holland or a Sugar Sean. You can just throw bombs. Just throw the Jeremy Stevens bombs out there, and that will gain the respect from Umar. Umar can't sit and touch those. He can't sit and just be touched by those all night long. That will force him to change his game plan, but Merab does need to make it a bit ugly, and like you said, he needs to add a lot of power into those strikes.
Yeah, and that overhand to a double or single leg seems to really work well for a great pressure grappler like Merab. Yes. So, get inside and throw those combinations, use your volume to get in, but then pop that big overhand over the top or a nice hook and use that to set up your wrestling offensive. How do you get to the back of somebody like Umar? You rock them and then you take them down. So you have a couple of seconds there to take advantage of them while they're shaking off the cobwebs. So I think that's really, really important for Merab. He's got to put some power in with the volume.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
And, point number 3, and this is something that he did in the Sean O'Malley fight, and he needs to do it again. However, I think it'll look a little bit different this time around because Umar's a totally different fighter.
Okay.
But that is to engage on his terms.
Yes.
Don't get roped into the fight that Umar wants you to fight. Be patient. If the crowd even has to boo a little bit, let them boo a little bit.
Right.
But don't just rush in on Umar and try to take him down, make it telegraphed, make it sloppy.
Right.
He's got to, and he's not going to have the luxury to circle the cage for 4 rounds like he did with Sean O'Malley until the 5th round. Sean was just like, screw it, I'm already losing the fight, I'm just going to take it to Merab now. But a little bit of that would probably be in order here. Move around, maybe get Umar to chase a little bit, maybe get him out of position a little bit, and then engage your takedowns. Because if you just go straight into Umar, 1, he knows how to defend the takedowns extremely well. 2, he's way better with his striking than you are. And 3, he will use counter wrestling to, off balance you and then either get a takedown of his own or land some good, punishing strikes for trying to take him down. So if Merab can get an angle, use your timing and use your shot, your volume to create an angle that allows you, okay, this is the opportunity. I have a better position as far as body orientation is concerned right now than Umar does. Now I'm going.
Right.
That's what he has to wait for. He has to engage on his own terms because we know he's got to do it time and time again. Merab's not going to get out there and beat Umar in 2 rounds or 3 rounds. If Merab wins this fight, it's very, very likely by decision.
Yeah.
Which means that he needs to get a takedown in almost every round.
Right.
And he can't take a whole lot of damage going in to do it. So engaging on his own terms, to me, point 3 for me is probably the most important point for Merab here.
Oh, definitely, because it's physical and mental. You really have to focus on both aspects. And I think that he really needs to, along with engaging on your own terms, that plays into being a disruptive defender. So whenever Umar comes in, we've known Merab to have a high guard, and he likes to, block some shots with his forearms and his shoulders and stuff and move forward. But I think if he's able to be a little bit disruptive, and when Umar does come in for a combination or something, if he puts a jab out there, maybe Umar or Merab will throw a push kick up the middle to be a disruptive, a foot jab, if you will. And I think that disrupting and engaging on your own terms are 2 very important things that go together perfectly, and Merab will actually be able to do that. And again, we talk about the Sugar Sean fight. That was the best example of engage on your own terms. He was only fighting when he really wanted to fight, when he needed to score some significance in those rounds. And I'm going to go back a little bit in the calendar, but I feel like the best game plan or the best blueprint for how this fight can go positively for Merab might be the old title fight that was Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
Now, Jan was not the striker that Izzy is. He fought well on his feet and he got his hand raised, but he got his hand raised because of the well-timed takedowns. He didn't just show his cards right at the beginning of the fight. And when you're fighting a high-level guy like Izzy or Umar Nurmagomedov, you can't show them the same thing a couple of times. In any more than 2 or 3 times you show them something, they've now picked up on it and you're not going to find it again that fight. So I think it's really important that Merab shows the pressure, shows that he's not afraid to be on the feet, and doesn't showcase too much wrestling early. I think he needs to time those takedowns perfectly. There needs to be 3 of them, but every one of them needs to be one that finishes the round on the ground. I think if he can get 3 takedowns in this fight, he's not going to have a whole lot of success with ground and pound. He's not going to have a whole lot of success moving to more dominant positions, but I think he could hold Umar on the ground for certain aspects of the fight and maybe for a couple of minutes at a time. And so I think if he gets 3 takedowns in whatever 3 rounds he feels best doing that could up his chances, and that would be fighting on your own terms, engaging on your own terms, and forcing Umar to potentially not engage on his own terms, but have to, reach and risk it a little bit to come back up on a low scorecard.
Yeah, I mean, every minute that's spent on the ground is a minute less that Umar can't potentially knock you out on the feet.
Right.
So even if it's just a 50-50 sort of situation, but Merab got the takedown and he's got side control or he's holding Umar in half guard or something, yeah, it might not be the most exciting thing in the world, and it might not be something where he's really running away with these rounds, but he's probably winning them. And more importantly than that, he's keeping himself safe, which to me, if Merab is to win this fight, I think it would be a lot more boring than if Umar is to win this fight. And so we're going to get into the predictions, in a separate video, but I think controlling when he engages and only doing it on times that are advantageous for Merab is a really important key for him to win this fight.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Cool. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you want to see the flip side of the conversation, here is Umar Nurmagomedov's 3 keys to victory. See what we have to say about that. Make sure it's the next video you watch. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment below. Enjoy the fights, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.